Hello, and welcome back to the Fallen Tree. Today, we're going to be finishing up some of the hardwood flooring that we started in part 1. So the hardwood flooring that we're making, the tongue and groove, is going to be installed in here in the cabin that I'm building from tree to cabin. Cutting everything up with a sawmill. Have a great video on making these spiral stairs. This is where it's going to all be installed up in here to be the flooring. No subfloor, just old school tongue and groove flooring. Just like in those 100-year-old houses used to be. Okay, so here's where we're going to make the hardwood flooring, the tongue and groove. If you remember, over here we went and we prepared it in the last episode. We got it all cut the length, planed down, uniform in size, width-wise. Cut the length for the joists up in the cabin. And we're going to be using this grizzly shaper. So a shaper is kind of like a big router table. So this is a 1.5 horse shaper. And it just runs on 110. They make bigger 220 models. I don't have 220 out in my shop, so I've been trying to stay with 110 power tools. These are the cutters we're going to be using. There's the tongue one, there's the groove one, and we're going to stick it and get it set up on that shaft over there. So let's get it set up and we'll see what this does. Okay, now that we got the cutters on and the fence back on, so this uses a split fence. So the first thing I do is try to straighten it out, and the next thing I do is I got a piece of scrap flooring here that I'm going to use as a guide of adjusting my cutter up and down. These are the hold downs provided by Grizzly. I'm going to try them out. Kind of new to the shaper, see how they work out. And then using a test piece, I'm going to adjust this second part of the fence. It uses a split fence, so if you were taking out material, you could move the second part of the fence out to catch evenly with the piece and the material that you cut out. Doing the flooring, you just need it to kind of be straight and run smoothly through so you don't get a bump in your cut. So these hold downs act kind of like a featherboard to hold it down. It also got a piece that you can put on the outside to hold it into the fence. So I get this adjusted so we can try it out. So it holds it into the fence tight so the material cutting out cuts out evenly, doesn't jump out, and is held down. As you'll later see in the video, I'm not very happy with these. This is a very poor design on Grizzly's part. So far, I'm pretty happy with the shaper, but the hold downs, we're going to create some jigs and we're going to do things a little bit differently because these just do not work out. So the next step is we'll get our first piece. Now that we have everything adjusted here, and we'll see how this works. Like I said, I'm kind of new to this shaper. I've used it doing some flooring projects in my house, making some trim, but I haven't made my own tongue groove flooring. And this is going to be quite an experience. I'm going to show you some jigs that I made to make my life easier, such as this feather board that I'm making right now. This is going to take the place of that piece that was holding in the board, because it wasn't doing a very good job of holding it in, and it would keep coming loose. So clamping on a couple feather boards holds my material tight against the fence. And because I'm using uniform widths, I can just set up my jig a couple times as I go through this pile, and it will hold it tight against the fence, so I get nice smooth cuts and lines. So now that we got everything pretty much set up, I think I'm ready to go. So I'm going to go through and put the tongue on all the long sides of the material. So as you can see here, the hold downs are not holding down. So we're going to make a jig, another feather board, and we're going to use that to hold down the material. Get it clamped on. So I'm just using scrap material when I'm doing this. I've got some stuff laying around the shop, went over to the miter box, put it on a bevel, cut some lines in it. It took me like 5 minutes. It's nothing fancy, but it's doing the job. It holds it down and acts as an anti-kickback as well. And now we got a nice straight piece. The grooves not moving up and down. So here was our next challenge, doing the ends. Being in a small shop, not really laid out, it's been a challenge. So the first thing I did is I put a runoff table on the outside edge. Now when I tried to run it through without a jig, you've seen what happened. So what I did is I made a little clamp system that's adjustable. That's two parts. One has a double notch that goes over the tongue. Then I used the second block to take up the rest of the width of the boards that I'm using. So when I clamp it, it holds it all straight and doesn't lift one side of the board. It holds it flat and smooth to the surface of the shaper. After I'm done making these cuts, I take a sanding block with some 80 grit and just kind of clean up that edge. Put just a tiny little bevel on it, so when everything goes together, it goes together smoothly and flawlessly. So here's what it looks like. I got a tongue on both sides of this. Here's a closer look of what I've got going on. So I just got these two blocks. The second block makes it so it doesn't lift, because when you clamp it, it's going to want to lift the far side. Later in the process, I did move the two clamps, one on each side. It seemed to hold it a little bit better. So I continued the same process. I switched over cutters for the groove side, and as you can see there, I started using a double clamp, making this tongue and groove flooring. So I continued through the process, going through the whole pile. And the results at the end are stunning. Okay, and this is the final product. This is the top side. It's going to just get a clear coat on it once it's installed. And the bottom side, I decided to do something a little different. Since we're going to be seeing it from underneath, I use this all-natural ebony finish. It's a DIY project. Uses just a couple simple ingredients. And I'm going to make a video on that here coming up in the next week or so probably, showing you how I made it, what I used, how it looks on different woods, because different species it looks completely different on. I tried it on maple, I tried it on pine, and I want to show you the differences, but this is what it looks like on oak. So when you look up at the ceiling rafters, you're going to see the natural wood for the joists, and then the flooring from underneath is going to have this ebony finish. I'll put a link in the description once I get the video finished. But as always, thanks for watching. If you haven't yet, subscribe, like it, share it with your friends. Until next time, my friends.